why YouTube? What do you do? And I see you have a YouTube play plaque there.
Yeah,
Congratulations.
and I was gonna go for the million, decided not to. Got kind of bored, not gonna lie of it. Yeah, so essentially, kind of my background a little bit. Started off content creation several years ago. I've actually been on YouTube since 2006, and for reference, I'm 24 right now, so about almost 2 decades. I've been on YouTube now. Obviously, YouTube 2006 when I was 6 years old is different than YouTube in 2024. It's a completely different game, but I have again almost 2 decades of experience on the platform, been growing for a long time. So that's kind of my background. Started off in content creation, just enjoying it myself. When I was in high school, I started a video production company, and I used to skip class and stuff like that to go film for different people, do photography, video editing, and stuff like that. And that's really before social media and influencers were really a big thing. And they didn't really have personal brands on Instagram. So luckily, I was kind of at the forefront of that, and that's how I really started my first ever business.
Why did you start the YouTube and that's at a young age? I'm surprised you must have had a consent from your parents.
Because back then, YouTube was completely different. Like YouTube was just a completely different platform. It wasn't like what it was now. It was just strictly entertainment. I mean, you couldn't even really monetize on YouTube till like 2014, 2013, around that time. So you really couldn't do anything besides, just brand deals and stuff on the platform. But obviously, I never took YouTube in that perspective. I kind of saw a shift around, I want to say 2016, give or take, when video content really first started. So people started posting stuff on Instagram for personal branding purposes. People have been doing YouTube for years, but more for the entertainment side, not really for the business side. So I kind of caught onto that really, really early. And that's when I was doing a lot of Instagram stuff. So if you know like what Instagram GIFs are, like little stickers you can put on your stories, I was one of the first ever people to actually do those. I actually worked with Jacob & Co. I worked with Red Bull. Red Bull is probably my biggest client I've ever worked with for any type of project. And I did that several years ago as a probably 18, 19-year-old at that time. So amazing work doing stuff like that, and just really being at the forefront of trends and content and stuff. And just from over there to, just kind of migrated into YouTube as a whole and just really pushing it for personal brands. And my kind of a thought process behind it, I'm sure you can agree with this as well, is when you have a personal brand on YouTube, especially if you have a business set up behind it, you can really just educate and obviously nurture that lead essentially from it. So when they finally contact you guys, they go to your email list to opt in, they're already warned. They're already ready to go buy and purchase whatever it is from there. So I realized that pretty early on. I said, how can I obviously get the best results for business owners and get them similar results you see for Mr. Beast or these other huge creators that are doing these amazing topics? No one was really doing that for the entrepreneur space. And so that's where I kind of came into it and really just started taking over that little niche as far as YouTube for entrepreneurs goes.
That's pretty interesting and pretty incredible. I would say YouTube is probably the hardest following to get now, especially, right?
Yep.
Like you could be an Instagram sensation with 100,000 or 1 million followers, but you could boost those reels and you got to put out a couple good videos and people just scroll. But for someone to watch you for like 10 minutes or even 5 minutes or an hour, right? That's something that's unique, and I see a lot of people doing really well on Instagram or some of the other platforms, but if they try to roll over to YouTube, I don't see as much success because I think there's a lot more oomph to it.
Yeah, it's a different game for sure. Always tell. So like in my personal opinion, the least on the totem pole as far as effectability is TikTok by far. TikTok is just a very, very young audience. People are just scrolling. They only want to see swipe content. That's it. There's no value behind it. That's why you have a lot of these influencers that had, 20 million followers on TikTok, and they go to push just merch. So nothing crazy, no high ticket offers, anything. They couldn't even push merch and sell, $50,000 worth of merchandise to a 20 million, view audience essentially from there. So it kind of just showed the correlation between it. And I always tell people, I'm like, if you can master the long form, which is the hardest thing to master, everything else is easiest. The reason why people go for short form, it makes sense. If you're a busy entrepreneur and you only have an hour, a week that you could really do anything, you shoot content for an hour, a couple of video topics, you get out 10, 15 reels, you can upload every other day, you're good to go. And so that's your whole month done essentially in a single day, outside the editing process, which is usually outsourced. So, YouTube is just it's a very, very powerful platform. And now it's finally starting to be recognized as it probably should have. I've been saying this for several years now, even back to, again, like 2016, 2017, that YouTube and long form video content is always going to be the best. If you can get somebody to sit down, watch you for 5, 10, 15, 20 minutes long, it's a game changer.
That's very interesting. getting back to, you said you worked with Jacob and Co. He didn't send you the Godfather watch, did he?
No, unfortunately, he did not. I really wish he did at that point. So actually, I originally got introduced to him through producer Michael. You might know, massive
Well,
YouTube personality. That's one of the first ever brands I worked with content. So we actually used to back in the day, whenever he'd upload a new YouTube video, we made these Instagram story animations before, again, people were ever doing video content really on Instagram at all. We were one of the first people to do that. We also did some, personal branding just for him. He introduced me to Jacob and Co. We did some stuff for them. And then from there, I just started cold pitching, all these big companies, and Red Bull happened to be one of the ones that responded back just through Instagram. I was just cold messaging them every single time saying, hey, I love the product. I would take a picture every time I had a Red Bull, say, hey, I would love to make one of these things for you. Here's a GIF. And eventually I started making them for them just for free. I sent it over to them and they were like, hey, how can we get this published? And then we finally got some published. So
That's incredible. Really cool. So you've created a whole marketing company out of that.
Yeah, that was my first viral, just viral kind of company. I mean, we did, I want to say, across 5 of my biggest clients for GIF accounts, not including Red Bull or Jacob and Co. So before those ones, we did about like 5 billion views, all organic, just from GIF stickers. So insane traffic for it. So I always kind of told brands, I'm like, hey, if you want to get, your brand awareness out there for certain keywords, we can rank you guys at the top. People will use it, get your brand out there. So it's really, really good. So I used to do that back in the day.
How has that evolved? What do you do now, or what type of clients are you going after now with your experience, of course?
Yeah, so I have essentially 2 businesses. One's in basically upcoming right now, about to launch it. My main one is Jane Digital Solutions. That's what I've been running for several years now. Again, started off sounding like a content production agency, now moved more towards like the management consulting kind of side of things for YouTube. But that's all we focus on that business specifically. It's just YouTube. How can we grow a client's brand on the platform? What can we actually do to get them more results? And then take those attention that we're getting and drive it into their business. That's our entire goal, is just, going through and making sure we're building a good strategy on the platform to really get them results. And so there's tons of different ways. We can obviously dive into that if you want to. And also, I actually have your channel pulled up as well. So YouTube, I'll kind of break it down as a whole on like how everything works. So it's going to be a little bit different. And when I say entrepreneur space, I just more mean of like business as a whole. It's a different game compared to a Mr. Beast video, the 2 different types of categories. And so when we're talking about entrepreneurship, it's more niche content. So the first step of every single video, if you want it to go quote unquote viral, is the video idea and the topic. So some video ideas like Mr. Beast video giving away a Lamborghini, millions and millions and millions of people can watch that. If somebody's talking about trading coins from 1989 to 1992, there's not that big of a market. So viral in that niche category might only be 5,000 views. So you have to talk virality relative to what audience you're obviously pushing forward to and trying to get attention for. So that's kind of the first step in understanding what they want to see. So as soon as you have a good video topic, the first step of it is your frontline stuff, which is click-through rate. So click-through rate is essentially, getting somebody, they see your video on the YouTube homepage or on the browse section. How do we get that person to click? So that's our first step. You can't get somebody to click. Doesn't matter anything else. It's like if you're trying to date a girl and you can't even get her phone number, you can't even go to take her out on a date. You can't take her to know, but you can't go anything else because you can't even get the number originally. Same way. So I always try to relate them back and forth. It's just like dating. So you got to get the number first. You got to court a little bit, show a little bit of interest, and get them interested, and then they can come into your network a little bit. So that's click-through rate, and essentially that's your thumbnail and that's your title. That's the 2 main things. So even when we're going to look at yours, right? I'll actually pull up your channel right now, and I'll give you some examples of it. So by the way, your channel's crushing it though too. You're almost at 30,000 subscribers. You're crushing it.
Yeah, I got to be honest with you. It's been slower than before. Like when I started it, I didn't start it like I'm thinking I'd be some big YouTube sensation. It's not my main business or anything, but I wanted to try it. And I've actually started YouTube back in the day, maybe 10, 15 years ago, promoting a product, a welding machine that I would sell still to this day. So there are some videos of me on this other channel that I'm like, hey, look at this welder, and this is the components, and blah, blah, blah. But it's been harder to get subscribers now. I think it's because there's just so many people out there doing videos. And then also you'll probably go into it on your end where I have to, my niche is maybe wants to have me talk about credit cards, which I have like an Amex Black card and so forth. And that's kind of how I got a lot of my following. But I want to talk about fun stuff like you're sharing, how to improve yourself, how to, I just had a guest right before you that was a recovering heroin addict that now opened her own recovery facilities and sharing her experiences. So the point of it is YouTube is not showing me love. So maybe you could tell me why.
Yeah, so always the easiest metric to focus on up front is click-through rates, right? And so YouTube actually breaks it down. If you go into your YouTube studio, which is your YouTube settings, you can actually see inside of it your click-through rate. It'll show your impressions, which impressions just essentially just means you're showing your video on the YouTube homepage, and then click rate just means the percentage of people that was shown, how many of them click onto the actual video itself. You can actually click into that, and if you sort it by essentially since you uploaded that video, you can click and see which category actually has your click-through rates. So there's multiple different categories on YouTube. So for example, homepage, it could be browse, it could be YouTube search, whatever it is. So depending on how you structure your video and your title, that can affect your impression to click-through rate essentially for it. So essentially, if you have a YouTube video that's kind of like a how-to video, but you don't structure it on the top line as far as your title and thumbnail to be a how-to video, you're going to get a lot of impressions on the YouTube search category, but you're not going to get a lot of clicks, because it's more set up for the browse feature. So we're studying a lot of the data on the back end on how we can actually get more people to click based on what the video is going to be about. That's our main focus for it.
I got you. All right. So what am I doing wrong?
Yeah. So with yours specifically, there's two main things I'm seeing right out the gate. Titling, right? Titling should be very, very short, very concise. And so what we always tell people is 45 to 55 characters max. Now, the reason we say 45 to 55 is because after 55, it gets cut off on mobile. Right. And now mobile makes up about like, give or take, 60, 70, 80% of all YouTube users. So the majority of people are going to be on mobile. So the problem is, some people might say, for example, it's like the top 10 best credit cards to have if you have poor credit. So people, if you're basically your title is like, 60 characters, 70 characters long, and they're seeing poor credit at the very end of that, that's the main thing we're trying to drive to get people to click on there. Like, hey, if you have bad credit, watch this video, show you some good credit cards to get. But if that's being cut off, they're not going to see that. So now those people that normally would be interested in it are going to leave. And so the second step of what happens is if you're getting the wrong people on your video and they click on it and they don't watch a lot of it and they leave pretty early on, to say the first 30 seconds, 60 seconds, YouTube's going to say, hey, we're not getting much people to click on this video. And most people who actually do click on it aren't even watching it. So we're not going to show this out to more people. And that's how a video just instantly goes down.
So that's how you think you make a hit. And it might be a great topic, but then YouTube completely throws it in the trash right away.
Yeah, because they're studying data. Basically, the back is essentially, and most social platforms kind of work like this. I just know YouTube specifically with it. What YouTube does is it sends it out a little bit of it to your initial audience, through notifications and stuff like that, which notifications right now on YouTube are just horrible anyway. They'll send it out to those people first, right? And that's your first, a little initial test. Then they'll send it out to a brand new audience on YouTube who may be interested on it based on the keywords, what you're talking about in the video, all that good stuff. And based on the interaction between the both of those, if they're seeing that you're having a very, very low click-through rate, say like a 1.5% click-through rate, YouTube's like, yeah, this is not worth sending to more and more people, because that click-through rate is just going to go down the more broad you go.
What is a good click-through rate on average?
On each industry. That's the whole thing. So we'd have to see kind of like the internal. So for example, like real estate, you can get, some higher click-through rates. If you're going, with just like a Mr. Beast kind of, video, you can get up there to around like, 10% click-through rates, 12% click-through rates. So we had one of our doctor clients that we did. He was a dermatologist. We did like, pimple popping videos and stuff like that. We actually drove a lot of traffic to his in-person clinic. It was crazy the results we got for him. So we were seeing on some videos like almost 20% click-through rates. It's a weird niche for his for sure. It's a unique one. But again, some of his, we're getting 15, 20% click-through rates. But I mean, we always try to aim for across the board. We like to say about a 4% click-through rate. 4% click-through rate, you're doing really, really solid. But if you're still getting, about a 3% click-through rate, that's fine.
Will that still be recommended at 3%?
3 to 4% is a really good spot. I would say for most averages and stuff like that, especially if you really don't know what you're doing too much, you don't know how to optimize fully or have anybody really helping you on the back end with strategy, then yeah, 3 to 4% is a good target to be aiming for it. But again, it could vary based on industry. So it just you have to kind of play that role a little bit and see what obviously makes sense for it. But that's essentially the top line metric. That's what we're focusing on for it. The second step would be thumbnails. So we went over your titles and stuff like that. Be very, very short. You can also use kind of what we call bridging a little bit, which is where you put like this in all caps is the best credit card to get in 2024. And you'll have like 2 capitalizations. You'll put this in all caps and you can put credit cards in all caps. So it just kind of draws attention to the video itself. You can also ask certain questions, different things like that inside the actual video itself. And one thing we also tell people is try to make evergreen content. I'm pretty sure you probably know evergreen content, but for the people listening who don't, essentially means videos that people can search up 5 years from now and are still relevant. So if you made a video today saying, the best credit cards to get if you have low credit, you can essentially make that video and it still could be relevant for 5 years to come. So if you have a business set up on the back end, like an email list, or you have some type of, free PDF that people can opt in for in the description, that thing can still be generating you leads for your business for years to come, because it's an evergreen video that's constantly being searched up for years to come.